Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and discovering something impossible. Every fish in the world's oceans has disappeared. Not most of them. Every single one. Millions of tons of fish, gone. At first, it might not sound like the end of the world. After all, there are still whales, dolphins, sharks, turtles, and plenty of other creatures in the ocean. But within hours, something very strange would begin happening beneath the surface. And within days, the consequences would start reaching land. Because fish aren't just something we catch for dinner, they are one of the most important parts of the ocean's entire ecosystem. And removing them would be like pulling a single brick out of a wall, only to discover that brick was holding up the entire building. So what happens next? The first thing you'd notice wouldn't actually be on land, it would be underwater. The enormous network of fish that normally fills the oceans would simply vanish. Schools of sardines, tuna, cod, herring, anchovies, even tiny reef fish, gone. And immediately millions of predators would lose one of their primary food sources. Seabirds would struggle to find food, seals and sea lions would be affected, larger fish-eating marine animals would suddenly have a serious problem. Even some whales depend heavily on fish or fish-like prey. And then there's the ocean's most famous predator, the shark. Imagine being a shark and waking up to discover that the entire supermarket has closed. No warning, no substitute aisle, just an empty ocean. But predators wouldn't be the only ones affected, because something much smaller would suddenly have an enormous opportunity. Fish occupy an enormous number of positions in marine food webs. Some eat plankton, some eat smaller fish, some eat squid and crustaceans. Others are eaten by almost everything above them. Remove all of them, and the food web doesn't simply lose one species. It loses an enormous network of connections. But here's where things get really interesting. With fish no longer eating plankton, algae, and other microscopic organisms, some of their prey could suddenly increase dramatically. The ocean could begin experiencing massive ecological imbalances. Some areas might see huge increases in plankton. Others could experience completely different changes depending on what species were previously controlling the ecosystem. And eventually the consequences would reach the ocean floor, because fish don't just eat, they also move nutrients around. And that matters far more than you might think. Fish are part of a giant biological recycling system. They consume nutrients in one part of the ocean, and through feeding, movement, and waste, help redistribute those nutrients throughout marine ecosystems. Some fish migrate enormous distances. They effectively transport nutrients from one area to another. Remove them, and those biological pathways disappear. And there's another surprising consequence. Fish are involved in the movement of carbon through the ocean. Their feeding, respiration, waste, and eventual decomposition all contribute to the ocean's carbon cycle. So removing every fish wouldn't simply mean fewer animals swimming around. It could alter some of the processes that help the ocean store and cycle carbon. And then there's the economic disaster, because billions of people aren't just connected to fish biologically, they're connected to them financially. Fishing communities around the world would be devastated almost immediately. Commercial fishing would effectively stop overnight. Fishing boats would have nothing to catch. Processing plants would shut down. Seafood restaurants would have a rather awkward morning. Sorry, we're out of fish. Anything else? Well, we have chips. Unfortunately, the problem would be much bigger than restaurants. Millions of people depend directly or indirectly on fishing and seafood industries. And in many coastal communities, fish are a major source of protein and income. Prices for other sources of food could rise as people search for alternatives. Governments would have to respond. Fishing fleets would become useless. Entire industries built around catching, transporting, and processing seafood would disappear. But perhaps the most surprising consequence would involve an animal you might not expect: whales. Many whales rely heavily on fish or other marine prey. If fish suddenly vanished, some whale populations could face severe food shortages, and the effects would spread through the ecosystem. Predators decline, prey species increase or change, nutrient cycles are disrupted, habitats transform, and eventually the ocean we know today could become almost unrecognizable. Coral reefs would be particularly vulnerable because reef ecosystems depend on intricate relationships between countless species. Some fish graze on algae, others help maintain the balance between competing organisms. Remove them, and entire reef communities could begin changing. And remember, this all started with one impossible event, every fish disappearing overnight. But there's one final consequence, and it's something humans would notice from space. The ocean itself could begin changing. Fish influence how nutrients and carbon move through marine ecosystems, so removing them could alter biological productivity and carbon cycling across enormous areas. The exact outcome would depend on which fish disappeared and how ecosystems adapted, but one thing is certain: the ocean would not simply carry on as normal, it would reorganize itself, and it would probably take decades, centuries, or potentially much longer for new ecological relationships to develop. So the next time you see a fish swimming through the ocean, don't underestimate it. That tiny creature might be part of a food web, connecting plankton to whales, nutrients to ecosystems, and the ocean to the climate system. Because fish aren't just living in the ocean, they're helping make the ocean work. Remove every one of them, and you don't just lose fish. You remove one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle that makes the world's oceans function. And suddenly, the most terrifying part isn't an ocean full of sharks looking for food. It's an ocean with nothing left for them to eat.